Good evening everyone. The buzzword is Bharat. Bharat, that is India. The Prime Minister has already outlined the ideological governance and cultural contours of the transition to Bharatiyata. So let's decode Bharatiya and Bharatiyata with these two fine gentlemen on the stage with me. Let me first begin with you, J Sai Deepak. You've written a number of books. In fact, you're coming out with a third in a series. What values define a Bharatiya for you?
So, one, I think the question that is usually asked is whether this is a religious construct or a civilizational construct or a cultural construct. I think if you go by the words of Sri Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan and Swami Vivekananda, it's impossible to take religion out of Bharatiya life. And I think a lot of people have tried but have failed to remove religion from even politics for that matter. Whether that's for the good or the bad, that I think posterity will decide. But it's a statement of fact, it exists. So I believe that religion and culture go hand in informing the civilizational identity of this land, which is Bharat. But the problem is, if you were to treat this as a construct which is meant to exclude certain populations from the tapestry of Bharat's identity, well, that's not the purpose of it. When you try and reclaim your identity, you're merely saying, this is who I am, and I'm happy to accommodate everybody else who does not have an antithetical relationship with this identity. So as far as I'm concerned, both Hindu Dharma along with civilizational aspects which are part of, let's say, Hindu cultural mainstream define what is Bharatiyata. During the course of the drafting of the constitution, one of the questions that was asked is that when public morality is sought to be defined and its contours are sought to be understood in the context of Bharat, what is the repository or the reservoir from which we draw those values? To which several members of the Constituent Assembly took the categorical position that Dharma is the public morality of Bharat. So if you were to ask me what is the defining trait which defines Bharatiyata, then you start and end with Dharma. Now, unfortunately, since English is a language which is incapable of providing a decent translation for Dharma, it is typically and crudely and incorrectly translated or approximated to religion, which it is not. It's more a code of conduct, but it also has a certain set of principles which clearly trace their origins to the Hindu faith system or the agglomeration of Hindu faith system, so to speak. So for me, in that sense, the civilizational identity of Bharat is significantly and primarily informed by Hindu Dharma. But precisely because it's defined by Hindu Dharma, it is capable of accommodating others who do not pose a threat to its very existence.
Mr. Anas, let's build on this opening by J Sai Deepak. The RSS and other spokespeople expect citizens from other denominations to describe themselves as Hindus. Dharma is, of course, identified very closely with Hinduness, they say, which they say is a function of Bharatiyata. Now, how does one apply it in the context of a multi-religious society such as ours?
See, my understanding of Bharatiyata, or Dharma even for that matter, has always been what I was taught as a kid in the school, अनेकता में एकता. हम वो देश थे, हम बहुत गर्व था हमें इस बात पे कि हम अलग अलग पहचान के हैं, अलग अलग धर्म के हैं, अलग अलग जाति के हैं, अलग दिखते हैं, अलग ज़बान के हैं, लेकिन हम एक थे. एक झंडा था हमारा, एक देश था हमारा, उसको हम सलाम कर रहे थे और मेरे लिए बस वही था एक धर्म का मामला. अब जय साई दीपक ने कहा कि हिंदू धर्म डिफाइन करता है धर्म की भारतीयता क्या है. मैं इससे थोड़ा अलग मत रखता हूँ लाजमी तौर पे. मेरा ये कहना है कि जब 1950 में हमने संविधान अपनाया तो हमने इस मुल्क को एक डिसाइड किया कि हम ऐसे देखते हैं, ये ऐसा होगा, एक सेक्युलर देश होगा, ऐसा देश होगा जहाँ सब बराबर होंगे, जहाँ सबके पास समान अधिकार होंगे. आज जब आप नागरिकता पे और मैं ये नहीं कहता हूँ कि जैसे एक बहुत ज़्यादा प्रेवलेंट आर्ग्यूमेंट है आर्टिकल 14 को लेके, मैं वो आर्ग्यूमेंट ही नहीं लेता हूँ। मैं मानता हूँ कि हाँ आर्टिकल 14 सिर्फ इंडियंस के लिए है, सिर्फ सिटीजन्स के लिए, मैं वो नहीं कहता हूँ। लेकिन जब आप पूरा उसका बेस बना देते हैं धर्म को, तो आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा कि डेमोक्रेसी जो खुद अपने आप में एक वेस्टर्न कंस्ट्रक्ट है, लेकिन हम उसको लेके चल रहे हैं और इतने उस पर गर्व कर रहे हैं, उसमें कि कौन से और ऐसा डेमोक्रेटिक या सेक्युलर देश है जहाँ पे धर्म के बेसिस पे सिटीजनशिप दी जा रही है। और सिटीजनशिप एक वो राइट है जो आप वापस नहीं छीन सकते हो, एक बार आप दे देते हो तो छीन नहीं सकते हो। तो हमें किसको दे रहे हैं, कैसे दे रहे हैं, इस पर विचार करने की बहुत ज़्यादा आवश्यकता है।
So this is interesting because his definition of Bharatiyata is unity in diversity, sort of derives from there. Now, you know, with the government that is identified with Hindutva, many are wary of, you know, outcomes such as these. I think he's referring, without naming it, to the CA.
Correct.
So how does one now reconcile the objectives of the CAA with the larger construct of the civilization, of the constitution as it stands?
See, interestingly, both of us are just coming back from the Chief Justice's court. That's why both of us are trying to, let's say, channel those arguments.
So you didn't finish your arguments
No,
there?
it's
You want to
listed for
continue
April
them
9th,
here?
in fact. So we are on the opposite sides in that matter. So I don't see why this has got to do with CA. But in any case, I'll try and address this. Just so that I answer your question to him in a slightly different fashion, I disagree with the RSS's definition of Hinduism and Hindutva completely. At least on their attempts to say that everybody who is born in this country is a Hindu. I don't think that needs to be said. I don't think someone who is a Muslim or a Christian needs to be expected to embrace the definition of Hindu in that sense, because there are two problems with that approach. One, it dilutes the definition of Hindu Dharma for the followers of Dharma themselves. And second, it foists that concept on those who are not followers of the Dharma in that sense. You don't need to do that. According to me, good fences make good neighbors, period. You don't need to actually start this interfaith dialogue and look for equality and, let's say, similarity in everything. That is not even necessary. The point is very simple. When you speak of unity in diversity, Bharat traces that very value precisely from Hindu Dharma, because Hindu Dharma is ultimately an agglomeration of multiple faith systems within itself. Several denominations subscribe to those points of view which may not actually find a point of convergence in that particular sense. The Vaishnavite might ultimately see Vishnu as the supreme being. The Shaivite may ultimately see Shiva as the supreme being. The Shakta might see Shakti as the supreme being or Devi as the supreme being. For each of them, you can think of them as monotheism in silos, but it's a polytheistic pantheon in that particular sense. So unity in diversity, as far as Bharat is concerned, cannot have learnt it from anybody else except Hindu Dharma, at least in the history of the subcontinent, so to speak. So on that, I don't think there is a difference of view between Mr. Tanveer and me. There is a clear difference of view in the attempts on the part of, let's say, certain sections of certain cultural organizations to dilute the definition. Now, should we go to the argument of the CAA? I will just limit it to this because ultimately this matter has to be contested before the court of law, the Chief Justice's court on April 9th, which is the next date. The point is, I don't think that piece of legislation is meant to threaten anybody who lives here as a legitimate citizen of the country, regardless of their faith. Two, I don't think the definition of CAA or the way it is being included as a humanitarian intervention as part of the Citizenship Act has anything to do with the topic here. So let me stick to the topic here. The point is, Bharatiyata ultimately means that your points of loyalty, your points of allegiance are not extraterritorial, and that you choose loyalty to Bharat more than anything else. Now that is easy as far as adherents of Hindu Dharma is concerned, simply because their sacred spaces are here. But if you happen to follow a certain faith system, I'm not saying that it is impossible for a non-Hindu to be loyal to Bharat. I don't think that statement can be made at all, in light of the kind of examples that we have had, right from Sri Arif Muhammad Khan of today to Abdul Kalam of the past. So I don't think those examples are valid. Those who are able to reconcile their faith, which have emanated from other parts of the world, and their loyalty to Bharat, according to me, are fully capable of subscribing to the concept of Bharatiyata. I am not going to use religion as the sole and the primary filter to exclude people from the pale of Bharatiyata. I'm saying those who are able to strike that balance will obviously fall within the definition. Those who think that their personal identity from a religious point of view is at loggerheads with Bharatiyata would have made the decision anyways. I'm just hoping that since we are told that there is an Indian brand of certain foreign systems or foreign faith systems, there truly exists such Indian brands which is different from the brands that is followed in our immediate neighborhood. That's all I can say.
But this concept of, let's say, let's flip the word, diversity in unity, how does the CA take that forward? I know that you want to sort of disconnect the conversation from Bharatiyata, but this government claims that it is actually the one that speaks for the essence of Bharatiyata.
Right.
And it talks about a Hinduness,
Right.
which it traces to
Right.
a dharmic past. But if that CA is going to be, or the Dharma is going to sort of, at some level or the other, bring out an exposition like the CA, then we have a problem.
So, see, let's have this conversation on the anvils of specifics. Is there any amendment to the existing Citizenship Act which precludes the possibility of non-Hindu applicants to knock at the doors of Bharat for citizenship or asylum? The answer is a no. The CAA is a limited inclusive intervention for the purposes of addressing the unfortunate realities of our immediate neighborhood, where 3 Islamic republics have a specific problem with other identities. That's the unfortunate reality. And we are operating under the premise that Indian Islam is different from the brands of Islam being subscribed to by our neighbors. Okay? Therefore, those people who are getting the rough end of the stick, thanks to their minority position in those countries, are being given a certain expedited option. Because the first point of attack when it comes to these countries happens to be those people who do not share the faith of the majority in those countries. Therefore, since they are the first points of attack, they are the softest targets possible, a limited intervention is being made. The myth that is being purveyed is that CAA translates to automatic vestation of citizenship. It doesn't, because they still have to satisfy the rules that have been notified. Second, all it does is that it limits a certain cutoff period from 11 years to 6 years. Two, my own criticism of the CAA, despite me supporting it in principle, is the cutoff date that has been prescribed, which ultimately translates to defeating the very humanitarian intention which is supposed to be the basis for the CAA. What is the point of limiting it to a particular date? Regardless of that, my argument still remains, I welcome it, because it doesn't take away anybody else's rights. It only makes sure that those people who are being kicked out are being welcomed as soon as possible. My criticism has also been the delayed notification of the rules. So because I am not the mouthpiece for any cultural or political outfit, I am at some liberty to criticize the proponents of the CAA themselves for the delay that they have caused after taking 8 different extensions from the parliament in the notification of the rules themselves. So according to me, it's important to dehyphenate these positions from any political organization or a cultural organization, because dare I say this, a lot of us are practicing Hindus not because of a political party or because of a cultural organization, but because we have always been practicing Hindus. Their existence or absence wouldn't have made a difference to our practice in any case.
So Anas, then what's the problem? He's saying that, look, it's only fast tracking, it's not denying. You can still come in if you're Muslims, if you're persecuted in various countries, in any country, you can still come here and seek refuge.
See, to that extent, he's right. I'm also not denying that. It's not even fast tracking, let me tell you. The purpose stands defeated as of now. Because to take the advantage of CAA, the cutoff is December 2014, and you have to be in India 5 years prior, that is 2009. Now that would have fast tracked to 6 years instead of 12 years. We are in 2024, 10 years since 2014. It's already redundant. It doesn't help anyone. CA neither helps anyone. It actually does create problem for those who are left out of NRC in Assam. Only particularly to Assam, it does create problem for them, and I will expound on that. But about the rest of the other things that Dharma and saying ki, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, there was this series called Panchayat, a very famous dialogue from that कि देख रहा है विनोद अंग्रेजी में बोल बोल के कैसा बात घुमा रहे हैं. तो ये वही वाली बात है कि अंग्रेजी में बोल बोल के कहने का तात्पर्य क्या था. जे साई दीपक मेरे भाई ने क्या कहा कि हिंदू आएंगे तो उनका भारतीय होना ज़्यादा आसान है. आप रोज़ खबर पढ़ रहे हैं, राजस्थान से लेके लखनऊ से लेके हर जगह से हिंदूज़ हैं जो जिनको हमारी एजेंसीज अरेस्ट कर रही हैं आईएसआई का साथ देने को। तो एक किसी भी रिलीजन को, किसी भी रिलीजियस डिनोमिनेशन के लोगों को आप एक ब्लैंकेट वो थोड़ी दे सकते हो कि तुम आए हो, तुम हिंदू हो तो तुम अच्छे भारतीय हो गए। ये कोई, इसकी कोई यानी कोई सेंस ही नहीं बनता है इस बात का। ठीक है, ओथ ऑफ एलिजियंस तो सभी को लेनी है, लेकिन इस बात का कोई सेंस नहीं बनता, यानी इससे बेतुकी बात तो मैंने सुनी नहीं।
रीजनेबल क्लासिफिकेशंस have been
Reasonable
used
classification
by many countries.
Let's talk about Hindu. What about the Tamil Hindus from Sri Lanka? What about the Buddhists from China and other places? For that, I mean, wherever. So आपने उनको क्यों छोड़ दिया? अगर आपको लेना ही था, and I understand कि आपकी अलग पॉलिसीज वही है तमिल्स के लिए, आपने उनको वो दिया, लेकिन सिटीजनशिप तो नहीं दिया आपने। आपने उनको रेफ्यूजी उसका दिया, सिटीजनशिप नहीं दी। तो आपने तो हिंदू के साथ भी पूरा कोई अच्छा तो नहीं किया है, आपने उनको भी छोड़ दिया है। दूसरी चीज़ मैंने कहा, मेरे सीए से कोई कॉरल नहीं है, इट डजेंट अफेक्ट मी, इट डजेंट अफेक्ट मी एट ऑल। मेरी सिटीजनशिप सेफ एंड सिक्योर है। लेकिन असम में 19.4 लाख लोगों की सिटीजनशिप चली गई है, वो भी नेचुरलाइजेशन के लिए अप्लाई कर सकते हैं उसमें से। लेकिन अगर अब सीए के तहत अगर उनको करना पड़े, मैं ये नहीं कह उनको सिर्फ इसी के तहत करना है, लेकिन अगर करना पड़े तो 2 लाख जिसे असम में ज्योतिवादी कहते हैं, जो हमेशा अपने को असमीज कहते रहे हैं, कि अपने को इंडिजीनियस कहते हैं, वो भी तो बाहर हैं। क्या वो खुद को पहले बांग्लादेशी प्रूफ करेंगे हिंदुस्तानी कहलाने के लिए? इससे बड़ी एब्सर्ड कोई चीज हो सकती है कि हिंदुस्तानी को हिंदुस्तान के सिटीजनशिप के लिए, नेचुरलाइजेशन के लिए खुद को पहले बांग्लादेशी प्रूव करना पड़ेगा।
Okay.
I'll try and make sense of the garbled argument presented here and see if I can unpack a few layers from
Garbled
that
argument.
Yes.
Okay.
So first, see, here's the point.
Yeah.
Ever since the end of the LTTE, situation has normalized to such an extent that Tamil Sri Lankans are not being forced to flee that country. That is a fact. The fact of the matter is, if Bharat had an equation or at least the ability to pressurize Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan to the extent that they could treat their Hindu minorities with some degree of dignity, then the CAA would actually be irrelevant and unnecessary. Because ultimately, it's a question of what is your relationship with those countries, what is the treatment of those populations by their native governments. Today, nobody can accuse the Sri Lankan government of meting out the same treatment to Tamil Sri Lankans the way Hindus of Pakistan are being given treatment by Pakistan, Bangladesh or Afghanistan, so to speak, in those countries. So if you can ensure that they can stay in their own countries without creating any further trouble for themselves or for us, we would want them to stay there. So therefore, the entire argument is this, that Bharat must effectively apply an open Dharamshala policy in the name of the CAA, and the CAA is unconstitutional precisely because it doesn't open its doors to every persecuted community under the sun. Frankly speaking, this makes a mockery of the concept of sovereignty and our own borders and our own sovereign interest and security interest. I have no reason to trust a Muslim from Pakistan, Afghanistan or Bangladesh, period. Because ultimately a choice was made, and therefore I will certainly view them with a certain degree of suspicion, a heightened degree of suspicion compared to people coming from the Hindu community in those states. That's a fact.
But the Hindus in Pakistan stayed back in Pakistan.
Here's the funny part.
The Hindus in Pakistan stayed back in Pakistan.
Their entire argument is, the Hindus of Pakistan stayed back. Why? Here's the point. When Pakistan was created, the question was, how do we divide land for this area called Pakistan? So the existing population of Muslims in this country in undivided Bharat was taken into account based on the 1946 elections, and then the area was divided. Despite 90% of the population of Muslim community before 1946 voting for the state of Pakistan, the bulk of them stayed back.
That's wrong.
That's a fact. It's a fact. It's a documented fact. You don't get to actually deny these facts.
It is out of context.
So today we are being told,
it loses in
we
nuances.
are being told everybody who stayed back for purposes of patriotism. Sorry, 1946 elections proved whose allegiance were where. Secondly, here's the important thing. The Hindus of
So you're talking about the 1946
yes,
elections and the results in the Muslim provinces where a large number of Muslims voted for
ultimately, it's like this.
Muslim
Assume for a moment, you have a 6-bedroom house.
Yes.
Out of that, one portion of the family says, we are X number of people, we need 50% of the house. Ultimately, only 2 people shift to that portion of the house which is being given for 50% of the family. The rest of them stay back. Now, because we are constantly told that Dr. Ambedkar is the framer of the Constitution, and we are expected to constantly kowtow to him, Why would Dr. Ambedkar speak of a complete exchange of populations after 1946 and after the elections if he wasn't aware of the ground reality when he was actually part of the drafting committee of the Constitution? So why is it that Ambedkar is selectively quoted and cited in other contexts? Why don't we quote him in this context? What did he say in his book, Pakistan or the Partition of Bharat? What did he say with respect to the reasons for population change? Why did he actually bat so vociferously for population exchange more than even Madan Mohan Malviya for that matter? Madan Mohan Malviya is the founder of the Banaras Hindu University in 1916. These are all people who were participants in the Sangathan movement. The one who openly wrote a book asking for exchange of the Muslim population of Bharat with the Hindu population of undivided Pakistan, so to speak, was Dr. Ambedkar. What is the response to that? So if you have a problem with this argument, go ahead, call Dr. Ambedkar an Islamophobe. We'll see what happens after that.
No, I will not do that. I will not do that.
No, but
anyway, caste is a
but
Western construct, my friend said earlier.
Fundamentally, there was a whole movement, as you know.
Let me put nuance to what he said.
No, they'll blame the two-nation theory on Savarkar and they'll leave Syed Ahmad Khan out of the picture.
Okay.
That will be the traditional argument.
When a man loses patience to listen, I know I have one. Okay.
Of course you have.
No, please.
First of all, see, this is what I learned during my days in debating. If a man attacks, see, this is the problem. This is the problem. We started with Bhartiyata. We started with Dharma. It ended up coming to Muslim from Pakistan. Like every single time. Is that Dharma? What about your own existence? Why are you not proud of that? I come from Banaras. संकट मोचन मंदिर के प्रांगण में खेला हूं मैं मुसलमान हूं, मैं 5 वक्त का नमाजी हूं, मैं सब रोजे से हूं, ठीक है, लेकिन मैं वो भारत को रिप्रेजेंट करता हूं।
ज्ञानवापी वापस दे दीजिए, ज्ञानवापी वापस दे दीजिए,
ज्ञानवापी पे चल रहा है,
मथुरा वापस दे दीजिए,
अरे आप सब ले लीजिए,
अढ़ाई चोपड़ा वापस दे दीजिए,
देखिए
अदीना मस्जिद वापस दे दीजिए, 40,000 places, give it all back. I'm sure बनारस में आपने
ये मैं जीत चुका हूँ, ये मैं जीत चुका हूँ, यहाँ हो गई तकलीफ। अब आप सुनिए, मैं उसकी बात करता हूँ 1946 की। 1946 में इन्होंने कहा कि 2-4 लोगों ने वोट दिया, 2 गए। भाई वोट का अधिकार कितनों को मिला था? आपने उस टाइम पे भी अंग्रेजों ने दिया था, जो दया भाव था, या हम जीते थे, जो कह लो।
But you can't deny the facts.
No, I'm not denying. See.
80%.
80% कहाँ? I'm denying this. It's not 80%.
86.
आपने 100 लोगों में, 100 लोग की जनसंख्या में से 10 को दिया वोट का अधिकार। वो 10 थे जमींदार जिनको मिला, जिनको कहते हैं कि अलीगढ़ के बच्चों की लौंडों की बदतमीजी है पाकिस्तान। हमेशा ये कहा जाता है कि अलीगढ़ के लौंडों की बदमाशी है ये। तो ये वही था, पाकिस्तान तो अलीगढ़ के लौंडों की बदमाशी था। उन्हीं को तो आपने अधिकार दिया था वोट का। हम जैसे, चलो हमारे भी रहा होगा, हमारे ठीक ठाक घर से आता हूं मैं, लेकिन बाकी जो गरीब थे वो थे, उनको अधिकार नहीं मिला था, औरतों को अधिकार नहीं मिला था, एक तबके को मिला था। वो तबका पाकिस्तान चला गया, उसको वहाँ पे बहुत ज़मीन मिली है, वो बहुत अमीरी से, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान ने तो अपना जमींदारी एबॉलिशन भी नहीं किया, तो इन लोगों के पास ज़मीन वमीन है, वो वहाँ खुश हैं। हम आज तक उनका झेल रहे हैं, हमसे तो कोई मतलब ही नहीं था, हमारे पास तो वोट था ही नहीं।
तो अगर वो इतने
हम पे उसका इल्जाम क्यों है?
sold on the idea of Pakistan, and if they now find that the idea is not a good one, in fact they are getting actually discriminated because of who they are in Pakistan, then it's not our responsibility to rehabilitate.
It is not a responsibility for Hindus also. Sovereignty की बात हुई थी ना, अपने बॉर्डर की बात हुई थी, हिंदुस्तान की बात होती है तो हिंदुस्तान के लोगों की बात होती है। आप सिटीजनशिप नेचुरलाइजेशन का आपके पास पूरा प्रोसेस था, 12 साल में पूरा होता था, एक बहुत अच्छा डेवलप किया था, पार्लियामेंट के पास वो राइट था, पार्लियामेंट के पास आज भी वो राइट है। 12 साल में मिलता है कि आप यहाँ पे 11 साल हिंदुस्तान में रहें, 1 साल आप लगातार रहें, या तो आप हिंदुस्तान में रहे हैं या हिंदुस्तान की सरकार की आपने सेवा की है। इसमें क्या बुराई थी? खैर आपने कहा चलो हम एक्सपेडाइट करेंगे, एक्सपेडाइट भी नहीं हो रहा है।
Respond to that. इसमें क्या बुराई थी? This is just a political.
Hindustan, he's just saying Hindustan has no civilizational obligation to the Hindus of Pakistan. Fair enough. That's what he keeps saying. 12 times he's just dropped the word Hindustan. Second, अलीगढ़ के लॉन्डों की जो अय्याशी है वो भारत पे बहुत भारी पड़ी। Okay, बहुत भारी पड़ी। Millions of people lost their lives. Millions of women were raped and paraded naked. And this is dismissed as Aligarh ke London ki ayyashi. How insensitive to the people have actually done this?
Millions में सारे हैं.
That's the funny part. This is the funny
Millions
part.
में कोई एक कौम नहीं है.
Here's the funny part. So the point I'm trying to make is, we discuss the obligation that independent Bharat has an obligation towards Hindus and Sikhs living in undivided Pakistan. This discussion happens from 45, 46, 47 because the conversation has already started. After the Lahore resolution and Karachi resolution, it's absolutely clear that Pakistan has become a reality. So then on, the questions start getting addressed. The Constituent Assembly starts, it's formulated in August 1946. Subsequently, once the conversation starts, we actually keep a few seats open in the hope that Pakistan doesn't become a reality. That is the extent to which we went. When we realized this is not going to happen, we switched the conversation to ask the question, what do we do to those people who are being held hostage? Because the history of this period will show that Pakistan decided to use the non-Muslim population of that particular area as a hostage population to negotiate with Bharat. The entire basis for the Nehru-Liaquat Pact ultimately was this. Let's assume for a moment that we don't owe an obligation to the Hindus of Pakistan and Pakistan doesn't have a duty with respect to Muslims of India. Why did the fount of everything that's great in this country, Shri Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, choose to enter into a Nehru-Liaquat Pact where both of us are assuring the other with respect to the safety of religious minorities in their country? What is this basis then? Ultimately, at the political level and at the constitutional level, we have accepted that we have a civilizational duty towards these minorities.
Anas,
This is documented fact.
That is
That's a very valid
point.
See, I'm
There you go.
I'm neither holding brief for Nehru, nor I'm
No, no,
holding
now
brief
you
for
please
Pakistan.
answer the
first of
specific
all.
question. Forget
But
about holding
I
a brief.
completely agree with that. At that point,
So we are now
Nehru-Liaquat-
executing that civilizational brief.
No, allow me. The civilization, Nehru-Liaquat Pact, what did it say? It said कि भाई तुम अपने तरफ के माइनॉरिटीज़ की वो करो, हम अपनी तरफ के करेंगे. वो चल रहा है, वो वहाँ भी चल रहा है, यहाँ भी चल रहा है. नहीं हो रहा है, आप इंटरनेशनल फोरम्स पे प्रेशर डाल सकते हैं. हिंदुस्तान बहुत मजबूत है, हमने पाकिस्तान को बहुत पीटा हुआ है भाई. आप क्या बात करते हैं? हम हर जंग जीते हैं, डिप्लोमेसी में हम उनसे ऊपर हैं, हर चीज में हम के विश्वगुरु हैं, मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी हैं.
The spirit of the agreement
हाँ,
gave both the countries a say in the welfare of the religious minorities across each other's borders.
Right.
Because of our history.
Unfortunately, in Pakistan, they broke that contract, that agreement. Now we fear for the future of the religious minorities, the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Christians, the Buddhists, the Jains, and the others.
Christians
So they
also.
say, where are the Jews? Well, there was only
Christian-
one Jew according to the census of Pakistan.
Yeah.
So they are
Jew-
saying that
Jews
because
is
you do
not
not
a
include
question.
Jews.
That's not the
So
point.
here's the point. If you read Articles 5 to 11 of the Constitution, that is entirely Pakistan-centric when you're defining citizenship as part of your own constitution because you realize that there's a continuing cord that connects you with the people there. It also speaks of how many people can go there. When you come back, what happens to your citizenship, so on and so forth. So in the backdrop of your specific history of the subcontinent, considering the basis for the partition, for us to say we owe no obligations whatsoever, despite the Nehru-Liaquat Pact, according to me, is to make an argument in vacuum when there are clear documented facts to the contrary.
Look, I get the sense.
मैं
Can
अपनी
I
बात
ask a
को कह भी नहीं
provocative
पाया
question?
था, लेकिन I'm very thankful to my friend here. He knows that I'm fasting and I can't speak much, so he's doing the all the speaking
मेरा
for
भी
me.
Tuesday fast चल रहा है.
नहीं आप पानी तो
हनुमान
पी
जी का
सकते हो
fast
कि
चल
नहीं?
रहा है.
हाँ तो but I'm being thankful to you. Why are you getting agitated? I'm just being thankful to you. Don't get so angry. You need not be so angry. हम लोग बहुत गुस्से वाले हो गए. क्या हो गया है? शांत रहो यार. अच्छा है सब.
These are responses to my arguments. Please continue.
हाँ अब मैं आता हूँ उस बात पे. मैंने कहा मेरा सीए से कोई क्वारल नहीं, मैंने शुरू में ही कहा था. मैं फिर से वापस आ रहा हूँ. मेरा क्वारल क्यों होगा? थोड़ा सा है, वो है अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनैलिटी पे. मैं संविधान को मानता हूँ. मैं संविधान के अगर कोई चीज अनुरूप नहीं है, कोई कानून, तो वो गलत है.
Okay, so
बाकी
one
सब
very
कुछ अलग
quick
है.
question that many people bring up, Article 14, ultra virus.
No,
or
I'm on Article
14.
15. I'm not on Article 14.
15.
Okay.
A quick response. It's just ultra virus of the Constitution.
Can I
No, it's
explain
fantastic. I
that?
think
Then
it's
he
a
can
great
rebut
point.
that. Okay,
Okay.
my argument. Let me
Please
place
go
my
ahead.
argument.
Okay.
Section 31C of Citizenship Act, which came by the 2003 amendment, for the first time said that a child born in India will be an Indian citizen
That's
if
true.
either of the parent are Indian citizen and the other is not an illegal immigrant. I'll wrap it up. Okay, is not an illegal immigrant. Now place this like this: I am a Muslim born after 2003. I'm an Indian citizen. My mother is not.
Sure.
My mother is an illegal immigrant. Similarly placed, there is a Hindu kid on the same footing. He can take advantage of the CA. I cannot. Article 15 says there cannot be a discrimination on the basis of race, religion, caste,
I'll answer
gender,
the
so on
question.
and so forth.
I'll answer the
And
question.
that's it.
1 minute, 20 seconds.
The problem with this argument is that a Pakistani Hindu refugee who has come through a legitimate refugee channel is being equated with a Bangladeshi Muslim immigrant who has come through the illegal channel as part of this particular definition.
Talking about born in India.
When Pakistani Hindu
I'm
refugees...
talking about Indians. I'm not
exactly
even talking
what
about
I'm saying.
Pakistanis.
A Pakistani Hindu refugee and an Indian parent, so to speak, when they combine, it's a marriage between an Indian citizen and a refugee within Bharat, which is recognized by Indian law. But when an illegal migrant wants to marry a citizen, that is not the same as a refugee marrying a citizen. That's point number one. Two, since we are constantly being told equal treatment, we should be concerned about the people here, we should always think about only the people here. What is my friend's position on the Uniform Civil Code?
See, this obsession, I'll come
No, it's not
to
an
this.
obsession.
No,
It's a legitimate
See,
question.
jumping, ज्ञानवापी दे दो, ये कर दो, UCC,
constitutional.
It's a matter of
तुमने
principle and constitutional.
संविधान के पे, I raised a question on point of law, you did not respond.
Mr. Anas, let's not
इधर
change
उधर
the
की बात कर रहे हो.
goalpost. He's asked you a valid question. We've got 20 seconds. I'm asking you. The Constitution itself says we should give ourselves a uniform civil code. The Supreme Court itself...
it is part of DPSP.
Yes,
it is not part
sir.
of fundamental right. First,
not
let me
enforced.
realize my fundamental rights. That is the
Sir,
priority.
it is an objective of the Constitution of
No,
India.
fundamental
as
rights are the
part of-
priority. First, give me
Sir,
that.
it is a directive principle. You aspire towards that.
The state aspires for that.
It is an ideal that we must aspire to, as the Constitution also upholds many other ideals to aspire to. No, not time's up.
You won't give me time to respond and you
Please, go ahead. 1 minute.
See, no, you haven't even raised a question. What will I
No,
respond
I've
to?
asked you. I said, how are you saying that this is
See,
a...
UCC is part of DPSP. मैं अभी fundamental rights की लड़ाई लड़ रहा हूँ. अभी मेरे पास खाने को नहीं है. इस देश में इतने लोग हैं जिनके पास मूलभूत चीजें नहीं
So
हैं.
it's
आप
okay if
aspire
exceptions are
कर
made
रहे
for
हैं बड़ी
certain
बड़ी.
communities.
Exactly.
Those
Preserve
exceptions
our
can
respective
नहीं,
religious
reserve-
freedoms and give us the
UCC
ability
में
to oppose
Article 12
anybody
में
else
मेरा
who is being
personal
actually
right
affected in
protected
Pakistan.
है.
That's the
Article
simple
12,
argument.
which is part
Okay.
of fundamental right, protects my personal right.
Okay, gentlemen, I didn't anticipate such passion, but we find that, no, but look, at least debate is alive in this country. So tell all those people out there that we can debate without fear or favor even the trickiest issues in India today. I'll leave it at this. Thank you very much.